So this is the Pixel 6 Pro versus the S22 Ultra. So which phone should you be getting right now in mid-2022? The Pixel 6 Pro goes for about $900 and the S22 Ultra goes from anywhere from maybe $1,000 to about $1,300 depending on which model you get and whether you get it on a sale or not. So which one is the better phone? Let's talk about it. As far as the design, both of them are going to be very unique looking devices, and honestly they're both pretty big devices in general. So the S22 Ultra has sharp corners and almost looks like a note phone, so it's got like a boxy design to it. The Pixel 6 Pro also is kind of boxy, but it's more rounded in the corners and the edges. You know, it's an overall somewhat looking smaller device. It is a little bit lighter too compared to the S22 Ultra, so in the hand the Pixel 6 Pro is going to feel a lot more comfortable. Now the Pixel 6 Pro does have a glossy finish compared to a matte finish on the S22 Ultra. Both of them can be pretty slippery. That is why I actually have a skin on the Pixel 6 Pro, because I don't know, I just feel like it's a little bit too slippery, and I don't use a skin on the S22 Ultra, but I'm always rocking a case just to add a little bit more grippiness. And also the way the camera arrays are set up are pretty different. So on the S22 Ultra, it's very simple looking in my opinion. It's elegant and simple, the way I would describe it. On the Pixel 6 Pro, it's unique and elegant. So depending on which one you like, doesn't really matter. I personally like the way how simple it looks on the S22 Ultra, but I definitely like the practicality of the visor of the Pixel 6 Pro, only because when you put it on a table, it doesn't rock like at all, versus the S22 Ultra that rocks a little bit. As far as hardware, button and ports, you have USB-C at the bottom, dual firing speakers, one earpiece at the top and one at the bottom. And honestly, both of them sound pretty good and honestly kind of the same to me. I know if you actually compare them and listen to them and know what you're listening for, you might be able to hear a difference. Personally, me, in everyday situations and real world situations and usage, I don't hear a difference. Whether I'm listening to music, watching a video, I think they both get pretty loud and sound pretty good for the most part. If I actually want to like enhance my audio experience or actually listen to audio, I'll typically always connect to a speaker or earbuds or headphones in that case. And both of them have the power button and volume rocker on the right hand side, albeit that they're kind of flipped. So the power button on the S22 Ultra is below the volume rocker, and then vice versa on the Pixel 6 Pro. It can be a little bit confusing if you're using both of them, like going and switching between both of these devices was a bit confusing sometimes, but if you just have one device, you're gonna get used to it, so it doesn't really matter. And the S22 Ultra also has a built-in S Pen, which is kind of useful at times. I don't really use it much, if at all, to be honest. I usually use the S Pen from my tablets on this device, because I usually just transition over to it really quickly. But it's there if you want to use it to write notes or use it to navigate this device itself. You know, it's kind of useful. Also has like the Bluetooth features. Personally don't use them, so it's up to you if it's a bonus that if you need like a stylus with you at all times. And both of them have an IP68 water and dust resistant rating, which basically means they're okay if they get splashed, if you drop them in the sink or something, washing your hands and you splash some water in the shower or somewhere in the rain, you'll be fine. So that's good to have on both of these devices. Also want to mention that the S22 Ultra's vibration motor is a bit more subtle, which personally I kind of prefer. On the Pixel 6 Pro is just a bit more aggressive. I wouldn't say it's like too aggressive to the point it's annoying, but you can definitely feel it a bit more. So if you like that kind of feeling, then you're gonna like that better on the Pixel 6 Pro. And as far as the displays, you're gonna get a 1440p, 120Hz AMOLED displays on both of these. Now the S22 Ultra does have a 6.8-inch display, and it does seem to have ever so slightly smaller bezels and a boxier display, so it reaches the corners further. So it gives you a better screen to body ratio compared to the Pixel 6 Pro. It has a 6.7-inch display with ever so slightly tad bit bigger bezels and chin. So in real world usage though, do you notice a difference? Absolutely not. Both of them are going to get you a really good display, whether it be watching content, just browsing around the phone itself. So whichever one you get, you're going to get a good experience. And both of them also have a cutout in the center for the cameras. So it doesn't matter which one you get, you're going to have a cutout and you get over it after some time, you get used to it. So no big deal there. But overall, I would say the S22 Ultra does seem to be a bit better with the colors, more vivid, just colorful. It just looks really good in my opinion. It's gonna get you probably the best display you can get on any smartphone right now. And the Pixel 6 Pro definitely looks pretty good, but it just lacks a little bit of color, a little bit of punch that the S22 Ultra has. And the S22 Ultra does get brighter as well. When you go outside, honestly, both of them are gonna get bright enough. Pixel 6 Pro does just fine outside in bright environments, but if you want the brightest display you can possibly get, the S22 Ultra is gonna be super, super bright. Or not maybe super, super bright, just brighter for sure. and both of them have a under display fingerprint sensor. But the S22 Ultra, I do find it to be a little bit easier to use just because you can honestly either tap or even tap and hold, whatever you're used to, and it should unlock. On the Pixel 6 Pro, you have to tap and hold just by a millisecond longer. So if you're used to just tapping it and getting right in, it might give you an error saying it didn't recognize your finger. So it's a little bit more finicky by the way you have to actually use it, but as far as the speed of them, both of them are very fast as soon as it reads your finger, in my opinion. Now the S22 Ultra does have facial recognition, unlike the Pixel 6 Pro, so it's an added convenience way of trying to unlock your phone as well, because sometimes you're in a situation where you can't put your finger right on the finger sensor, so you can just hold it up real quick and you can easily unlock it by just, scanning your face real quick. It may not be the most secure, but it's still a nice convenient way to unlock it. And as far as the performance, the S22 Ultra does have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. My model has 12 gigabytes of RAM with 256 gigabytes of storage. The Pixel 6 Pro, this is the base model, so it has the first gen Google Tensor chip with 12 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage. So what does that all mean? Honestly, both of them are going to give you flagship level performance. They're going to be pretty good for pretty much everything that you throw at them, regardless of what it is. So both of them can just handle your daily activities, whether it be media consumption, gaming, multitasking, just browsing around social media, browsing stuff on the internet. Whatever it is you're doing, both of them should be able to handle it without any problems. Now the only major difference that I noticed, which I noticed was a theme with the Pixel 6 Pro comparing it to every other phone I've used, is that it seems to warm up a little bit warmer and faster. So whatever you're doing, eventually both phones would definitely warm up, but I always found that the Pixel 6 Pro was faster and warmer at times. So that just meant that, you just have to be a little bit cautious of what you're doing. It didn't really slow down in performance that much. It just meant that, it just got a little bit warmer. And it wasn't that big of a deal, honestly. It's just something that I noticed. So honestly, both phones, just like I said, give you really good performance. There's not much to talk about there besides saying you're not going to be disappointed whichever one you get. They're both going to be very well-performing phones, even at the different price gap. They're pretty much at even playing fields. Whatever app you open, both of them will open them pretty much the exact same speed. Sometimes S22 Ultra will come on top. Sometimes the Pixel 6 Pro will come on top. So it's kind of like a toss-up sometimes. So that shows how equivalent they are and how performance nowadays on high-end chips are pretty good for the most part. But I will say that both of them aren't perfect, and it probably has to do with a mix of the hardware and software, because I've come across various bugs, very occasional glitches and stuff like that. So now let's talk about the software that each of them have. So the S22 Ultra is going to be using Samsung's One UI, versus the Pixel 6 Pro is going to be using Google's Pixel Launcher. So both of them are going to provide you some similar functionality as far as like Android, so the basic level of Android, and all the phone functionalities. It's going to be pretty much the exact same. There's not much of a difference. I will say that's kind of annoying that Samsung has to add their own versions of certain like basic apps, such as the calculator, messages, phone, the Photos app. You got duplicate apps on Samsung phones compared to the Pixel phone that just uses the Google version, because sometimes you want that Google version, sometimes you want the just basic Samsung version. So that's the only complaint I have about that, but otherwise all the functionality is pretty much the exact same. So first I'll talk about One UI and the different features that are not available on the Pixel Launcher itself. So the first one mainly being how well it takes advantage of the big screen. One UI in general is really well optimized to take advantage of the whole large display, and even in its settings or even in its native apps, all those apps and settings are pretty well optimized to make it easier to use one-handed, hence the name One UI. So for the most part, I love that, because on the Pixel Launcher, it's not really that user-friendly for one-handedness, but it also adds a bunch of extra padding that I don't like the elements, notification panels, all that stuff. It's a little bit too aggressive when it comes to the padding and wasted space, but that's just my personal opinion. The Edge panel in One UI, probably one of my favorite features here, basically allows you to store away and hide away some of your apps and even set up some quick shortcuts to your multitasking pairs. So multitasking on here is also super amazing. So not only can you do picture-in-picture, split screen, but in split screen view, you can also take advantage of pretty much every app that you download, because you can go into settings, labs, and force all apps to go into multitasking mode, basically allowing you to do pop-ups as well and do split screen with all the different apps. So that means that also some apps may crash when you're doing this because they're not optimized by the developer to go into these different dimensions and stuff like that. But it's still really cool that Samsung allows you to do that. You can also use Samsung DeX on here, which basically changes the way you interact with your phone by connecting to a monitor or a TV and allowing you to create like a Chromebook-like interface and browse stuff on there. It doesn't really allow you to use desktop apps, but it just allows you to pop-up windows and stuff like that to make it feel like it's kind of like a Chromebook, which is pretty useful, but I don't personally use it myself. And you also have secure folder, which basically allows you to hide away sensitive and important files or photos or apps even. So it's pretty cool if you need that as well. And then the app drawer itself, I just like how easy it is to customize it as well. So you can create folders within the app drawer. You can actually move apps on certain pages within the app drawer. Just makes organizing it a lot nicer. I also like the new smart widget that they added, which basically allows you to stack a bunch of widgets into one widget. So you can, make your home screen a lot more compact without having a bunch of widgets everywhere. I personally really like it. And then you also have Good Luck, which basically gives you a whole nother app with a whole bunch of other modules to customize your phone even more. I don't use them all, I just use Home Up, but it's just amazing how much different customization features and just features in general for the software that Samsung gives you in One UI. And I'll be honest, I don't have a ton to complain about One UI. I honestly like it a lot, but the one thing I think I would say that's maybe not as good as it is on the Pixel launcher is the animations. It's still a very smooth and nice animation in 120Hz display, but sometimes you get a little bit of choppiness. Sometimes it doesn't look as smooth as it does on the Pixel launcher itself. Because the Pixel launcher, it looks very smooth in my opinion. But what does this have over the S22 Ultra's One UI? Honestly, not as many features, but it gives you a very simple and easy OS to play with essentially. So if you just want a phone that works really well, Android 12 on here just functions as it's, I think, meant to be essentially. So really the main features that you get on here are going to be AI features. So you can use a speech to text that is very fast and pretty accurate for the most part. You also have the ability to translate stuff on the fly without actually connecting to the internet. So if you need translations a lot, Pixel 6 Pro is going to help you there. And lastly, this one's not really AI, but if you double tap on the back, you can easily bring down notification panels, bring down the quick settings, which does give you a little bit of a one-handling friendliness feature, but that's pretty much it as far as the crazy features that you get on here. There's not much. Both of them have material use, so I won't really give that to either of them. So you can customize your settings, your OS, your basic apps to look more aesthetically pleasing and use the colors from your wallpaper. So both of them have that available. So overall, which one should you get based on that performance and software? So S22 Ultra is going to give you a really good performing phone with a lot of features packed into the software itself. The Pixel 6 Pro is going to give you a really good performing phone as well, but with more of a simple and AI feature based, bonuses as well. So personally, I'm going to pick the S22 Ultra. I prefer the software features over the AI features, just my personal opinion. So think about which one you think is better for you and pick from there. As far as cameras, even though I'm not a heavy camera user, honestly, both of these camera systems are pretty good. There's just small, slight edges that the S22 Ultra has over the Pixel 6 Pro. And both of them are very well optimized for like social media apps, such as Snapchat. That's the app I use the most. And the camera quality on there, it's not like amazing, but it's definitely a lot improved compared to other phones that I've used or from previous generations. Starting off the front camera, both of them are really nice. The S22 Ultra does seem to take brighter and more vivid colored shots compared to the Pixel 6 Pro's warmer and more natural color tones. So both of them are great. Honestly, it depends on the situation where I might pick one over the other. So sometimes I feel like the Pixel 6 Pro photo looks better. Sometimes I feel like the S22 Ultra photo looks better. And the S22 Ultra does seem to pick up a tad bit more detail. But going into video, both of them can record 4K 30 on the front and 4K 60 if you want to, but I stick to 4K 30. And like I said, same idea, colors are going to be the exact same it wasn't during photos. So depending on which one you prefer, it's going to decide which one you like better. So for me, both of them are going to be very good when it comes to the front for photos and videos. And then going to the back, the ultra wides are both going to be pretty much the same wideness. They're both going to be very nice photos to take of wide landscapes. But when you start to try to get up close and take personal shots, micro shots, I guess you want to say, the S22 Ultra has a better focus distance. I think that's what it's called. Basically, I can get closer to things and it'll actually focus. Unlike the Pixel 6 Pro, that doesn't have as great of a focus distance. So that means that I have to be further back if I wanted to be in focus. So I like that, so I can get those kind of like macro shot-like shots on the S22 Ultra. And the colors, same thing as the front. As like we go on here onto the main wide, the ultra wide, the main, the telephoto, the color tone it takes, like the way it represents the colors of the photos, looks the same as it was in the front. So S22 Ultra is always going to be a little bit brighter and a little bit more vivid. And yes, on the Pixel 6 Pro, it's going to be a little bit warmer and more natural. So like I said, it's hard to pick one over the other because like I said, there's some situations where the Pixel 6 Pro just looks a tad bit nicer, or the S22 Ultra looks a little bit tad bit nicer because of the better colors. So I don't know, it's hard to choose. I like them both, but the S22 Ultra does have a max zoom of 100x versus the Pixel 6 Pro that caps out at just 20x. But still, you'd get a further zoom capabilities on the S22 Ultra. So 20x and 30x are going to look a lot better on the S22 Ultra compared to the 20x max zoom of the Pixel 6 Pro. So if zooming in is going to be something you're going to be doing a lot for photos at least, then S22 Ultra is going to be the way to go. Now it does get a little bit blurrier and a little bit more watercolor light as you zoom in on the S22 Ultra, but I think it's still pretty cool that you can zoom in. So that's a nice bonus. Now, as far as video, both of them can record 4K 30. The S22 Ultra can record 8K 24 FPS. I don't record 8K, so it doesn't really matter to me. But 4K 30 looks pretty good, and same thing as the photos and all that stuff. It's gonna depend on which color profile you like better. I think both of them look pretty good in my opinion, depending on which one you want to pick. It's up to you. Now, as you start to zoom in, again, this is gonna be a little bit of a difference. So first on 4K, both of them cap out at 20x. So you get the same zooming here. You get the same, distance that you could on either devices, so it won't be much of a difference. But as soon as you start to zoom in on Full HD, for some reason, this is something I noticed when I was comparing it to the OnePlus 10 Pro, the Pixel 6 Pro can't zoom in further than 7x digital on Full HD. So that's a little bit weird. On the S22 Ultra, you can record Full HD and max out at 20x zoom as well. So I don't know, that's kind of weird. If you know you're going to be using 1080p or Full HD quality a lot, then you might want to go with the S22 Ultra. But if you're just going to be recording 4K, which is basically what I do all the time, then it doesn't really matter because both of them will cap out at the same distance. So overall, trying to pick one of these, it's very challenging. You could say that because you're saving a lot more money, then the Pixel 6 Pro is going to be a better way to go because you're getting more bang for the buck. But there's like those small edges that, make it seem a little bit more complete, more versatile on the S22 Ultra, that focus on the ultra wide and the further zooming in. So you gotta decide which one you like better. For me, it's hard to pick. I like them both and I'm not gonna be disappointed on whichever one I pick. As far as battery, both of them have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. So on paper, both of them should be lasting about the same. And honestly, they do last about the same amount of time. So I can get both of these devices to last me pretty much all day if I'm not using them that much. So on my work days, I'll usually get anywhere from 2 to maybe 3 hours screen on time. So it's not a ton of time that I'm using my phone, but that's fine because, like I said, it gets me through my whole day. On a heavier day, I'll definitely end up killing both of these phones at some point. So anywhere from 5 p.m. at the earliest to sometimes 9 p.m. at the latest, depending on how I'm using the phone. Sometimes it's different every day. So I can definitely kill these if I want to, or I can definitely make them last if I want to. Now, if you do have to recharge though, the S22 Ultra does have 45 watts of charging. I forget what's the speed of the Pixel 6 Pro. I think either 23 or 30 watts of charging, but I can tell you that on the S22 Ultra with its max charging, it takes about an hour to charge versus the Pixel 6 Pro that takes roughly about an hour to an hour and 15 to 20 minutes. I swear before it used to be like an hour and 45 minutes. It used to be a lot longer. I'm pretty sure with updates it's gotten better because I feel like it gets really quickly to like 80%, 70% in like half an hour. Same thing with the S22 Ultra, it definitely gets like 70 to 80% in about half an hour. So it's pretty fast when charging at like low levels. But once you get to like 80 or 90, that's where both of them tend to slow down a little bit. Both of them also have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging. And the Pixel 6 Pro has a feature where you can do adaptive charging. Basically allows you to trickle charge overnight and then fully charge by the time you wake up. But I can never get it to work on my Samsung Trio. I don't know if you need a specific wireless charger or need to be plugged in or something, but for me, it just barely ever works. So I usually end up having to turn that off. On the S22 Ultra, what I do is I typically have a Bixby routine that turns off fast wireless charging after like 10:30. That way, when I always go to bed at night and I need to charge overnight, I won't plug it in. I'll just wirelessly charge, but slowly wirelessly charge. So overall, as far as battery life, both of them are going to be somewhat similar, but the S22 Ultra does have a slight edge when it comes to that faster charging. So at the end of the day, which one should you pick? Even though both of these are really good performing phones, I'd pick the S22 Ultra. It just seems to be better feature packed. Everything from the display, the camera, the battery, and just software, it's got so many more features on here that I like compared to the Pixel 6 Pro. But it's not $300 to $400 worth more than the Pixel 6 Pro. I definitely think if you go for this S22 Ultra, definitely try and get it at a sale. The model I have here currently, or technically, retails for $1,300. I definitely think you should try and pay way less than that. As much of a sale you can get, try and get that. But otherwise, maybe even consider an S21 Ultra. It's pretty much everything the S22 Ultra is, minus the S Pen. But otherwise, if you just want a simple and easy performing phone, just get the Pixel 6 Pro. It's such a good performing phone. It's super simple. It's not overcomplicated. It just works pretty much. So that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Peace.